Hello, my name is Rick Alber, and I'd like to welcome you to the CMTA webinar hosted by Jonah Berger and entitled, Want to Go Out With Me in My Braces, or Dating with CMT. This webinar is part of a series of webinars presented by the Charcot-Marie-Tooth Association. CMTA funds these webinars in order to present information about CMT and give members of the CMTA the opportunity to hear experts in the field of peripheral neuropathy and have their questions answered in a live presentation. These webinars are recorded and made available on the CMTA website at cmtausa.org under the Resources tab on the home screen. All of the recordings include the audio of the webinar, any slides used by the presenter, and a written transcript of all that was said. Many of the recordings also include video of the presenter if it was used during the webinar. In this webinar, Jonah did not use slides to illustrate his points. In the early part of the presentation, we only have audio recording. However, video of Jonah speaking begins at about the 3-minute point. Jonah Berger is 41 years old and lives in Colorado. He runs a business called The Rhythm Within, working with kids and adults with special needs. He has been diagnosed with CMTX and has enjoyed an interesting journey of challenge and wisdom. He is the author of He Walks Like a Cowboy, a book detailing the life and lessons of the CMT path. He's a proud member of the CMTA community, and I'd like to welcome Jonah right now.
To do this a couple weeks back, we had some technical issues, so I just want to apologize that things got funky and welcome you back and thank you for bearing with us as we tried to get this discussion going on a groovy topic, I think, dating and disabilities. It's just a real pleasure to be here, so thank you for spending an hour with me. Number one, I guess you might be asking yourself, first of all, I'm 42 now. It was my birthday on Saturday, so I'm officially 42 years old. I am not married. You may be wondering why you're going to spend an hour listening to dating advice from a 42-year-old single man. But I would tell you that by very nature of the fact that I am 42 and still unmarried is that I've dated a lot. Therefore, I have a lot of experience and a treasure trove of wisdom to share with you on the topic, I assure you. Number two, I do have a girlfriend, I am delighted to say, and so you can trust that, for lack of a better way to put it, all the advice I'm going to give you works. If you're genuine and follow my lead, I promise you things will work out. So cheers to that. I want to encourage you now, and I'll remind you several times through, to ask questions. Ask as many questions as you can because it's important for me not just to share my thoughts on this topic, but to address your thoughts on this topic. So while I'm the one kind of presenting and doing most of the talking, I want to make sure that this ends up being a group discussion because that's, I think, going to lead us to our best success. So ask those questions, type them in, and Rick will keep track of them. Lastly, I will tell you that I'm going to be myself in this webinar. I'm not going to be this professional, uptight person. I'm going to be Jonah. And with that comes looking down at my papers constantly to make sure I'm on target, losing my place from time to time, using humor whenever possible, and not always being 1,000% appropriate in the moment. So if any of those things offend you, I apologize in advance. But I find that especially with this topic, but anytime you're addressing a group of people, it's probably best just to be who you are. So bear with me. Welcome to Jonah. Okay, a quick overview of me, and then we'll jump kind of right in. I am 42. I live in Colorado. I am from Rockville, Maryland originally, and have been out here in Colorado for about 15 years. I've directed several camps for kids and adults with special needs. I was the program director at the Easter Seals camp for Colorado for 2 years, and now I am back down in the Denver metro area running my business called The Rhythm Within. You can find us at therhythmwithin.com. It's a therapeutic mentorship business that works with kids and adults with all kinds of special needs. I do consulting, I teach a class, I do a drumming, special education, awareness program in schools, kind of a lot of different things, but that's what I'm kind of busy with these days. My family has CMTX, so the CMT is found on the X chromosome. My mother has it. My grandmother had it. Out of 4 sisters, my mother's one of 4, 3 of them have it, 3 out of 4. Those 4 girls had 9 grandkids, or 9 children. I am one of those 9, and out of those 9, 3 of us have CMT. So I have an older sister who is unaffected by CMT, and I am affected, but I'd say a little bit blessed by it as well. We'll get into that later. So that's me. Welcome to the conversation. Let's jump in. So the topic of dating when it comes to disabilities, I think, is a really important one. And the way that I'm going to kind of frame my chat with you, which will be about a 20 to 30-minute talk, is by reading to you one of the chapters of my book that has to do with dating and disabilities. My book is called He Walks Like a Cowboy. Kind of hard to see. There you go. That's me there. You can find it online anywhere. I'm not promoting that for sales. I'm promoting it because I believe it's a good tool to explain to those without special needs or CMT what it's like to have CMT or a physical disability. I also think it's good to give anyone who's dealing with any kind of challenge because it's words from someone who understands. So we're going to read chapter 4 called The Ladies. I know, bear with me, but that's what it's called. And I'll stop kind of every so often to share some thoughts with you. And the thoughts that I'm going to share are in regards to 5 steps that I believe, in retrospect, looking back on my path, have been the 5 most important pieces of wisdom that I've learned in my experience with dating, especially when it comes to, I will share with you these 5 pieces of wisdom. I will encourage you to follow these 5 pieces of wisdom in the best way that you can and adapt them any way you need to suit your situation. I am not professing to say that my path is any more important or less important than anybody else's. What I'm saying is that I think I've learned some things, and if any of them can be translated into your path, more power to you, okay? So let's start with step number 1, and I think it's one of the most important steps of the 5, and it is dispel the myth. Having a disability is not the reason for dating issues. So I think the one thing that we all fall prey to is starting to assume that because we have a disability, that's why we're having trouble with dating. But I think that's a blanket we put on ourselves, and I think that's weight we carry around ourselves. And at the end of the day, if you just take that blanket off, it's less weight. So I'm asking you up front to take a bold step and let go of the fact that because we have CMT or because you have a physical disability, that's the reason why you're struggling. You're struggling because of, if you're struggling because of the grip you have on your disability. The disability itself does not prevent you from dating and does not prevent you from dating successfully, I assure you. So number 1, let's dispel the myth that the disability is the reason for the issue. And let's start reading, shall we? Off we go. Chapter 4, The Ladies. I'm having like one of probably the strongest allergy days of my life today, so I'll be itching and sniffling some, so bear with me. Here we go. When it comes to being with women in combination with a physical disability, it became clear to me early on that I wasn't going to be able to rely on physical prowess to get the attention of the opposite sex. In regards to the song of me, girls were going to have to listen to the words. The tune alone was not going to do it. In the discussion of this topic, it is helpful and important to cite specific women who have played a part in my development of balance between women and disability. To preserve their anonymity, I have chosen to call them each by a certain dessert. Why? Because each of these precious souls have been a very sweet turn on this path of mine. I have always seen a certain benefit to my disability and how it pertained to my pursuit of the opposite sex. CMT being a degenerative condition allowed a certain sense of normalcy in the early years of my pursuit. I had basic and common physicality and ability during those all too crucial teenage years. The fact that CMT wouldn't truly show itself until years later allowed me to deal only with the typical awkwardness of youth instead of compounding that strange time with the effect of a physical challenge. I was no all-star athlete, but I have a feeling that CMT had very little to do with that. So I began, thank God, to use my humor and personality to attract the girls in my line of sight, and to thank God again, I was blessed with enough charisma to obtain a series of normal, youthful experiences on my growing path. Then came the middle stages, when I was still appearing mostly normal. Around the ages of 15 to 21, the physical manifestations of CMT were starting to surface. Going to drink water. Cheers. In my mid-teens, it would be falling down sometimes, tripping over my feet on ground that could not have been flatter. Take one of my first girlfriends ever. We'll call her Pudding. Pudding was a great example of sheer immaturity. I remember falling down in front of her once, and she was too busy laughing at first to think of any potential concern for me. To her credit, she was 15. And also to her credit, she was not armed with any information from a woman about it. Pudding was also a lot richer in looks than she was in heart. Sorry, Bill Cosby. Which will allow us to pause and go on to step 2. Step 2 is the idea that it is our responsibility, in my humble opinion, to communicate about our disability to those that we are aiming to spend time with. And I wanted to mention before that, you know, for me, it's been females. If you are if you are men with other men, if you are gay, by all means, just apply it to your situation. But I'm going to talk about women not specifically because I'm believing that, but just because that's been my path. Just wanted to acknowledge that. But I think the responsibility is ours. I don't think the responsibility is the other person's to ask us about our disability, to inquire about it before we open up. I think we need to kind of set the table and be bold and communicate. And I have found, at least in my path, that the more you do that, the more at ease the person across the table from you feels. There are some people out there who are amazing and just jump right in and say, hey, why do you have those braces on your legs? Or why do your hands look that way? But out of the two, I don't think it's their responsibility. I think we need to put them at ease. And you will find that the benefits for yourself are profound. Because then they're comfortable, and then they see that you are comfortable, and then you can just kind of get to know each other and put that to the side. If you don't communicate about it, in my opinion, it becomes bigger, and it's on their mind. And as we know, by looking at our hands or at our feet or leg braces, you can't deny it. It's there. So acknowledge it is my offer to you. Cameron Crowe quote comes to mind. He's a movie director. He did Almost Famous, Jerry Maguire. Basically, he said, are the things I put into my movies that are the most personal. So basically what he's saying is that the more personal material that he puts into it, the more people get out of his films. And I think the same is true for everyday people. If you are completely personal with someone and completely honest with them, I think they connect to you better. And if you are kind of reserved and sheltered, I think that's kind of how they're going to be. So step 2, take the responsibility, communicate about your disability. Let's continue reading, shall we? I think we shall. Then there was the first time I fell in love. At the age of 17, this wonderful soul we'll call Sherbert. Sherbert was great. She was beautiful on the inside and out. She was my first experience with the flood and range of emotions that accompany a solid tumble. We were together on and off for 2 years. Sherbert helped me to understand one very important reaction in the many I would receive over the years when confronting a woman with the reality of my disability, the dreaded uncomfortable silence response. I was just entering into my true openness about my condition, and because we were so close for so long, she was well aware of my condition. Yet as time passed by, I began to notice that she never brought it up. It was never addressed by her directly or in any other way for that matter. Over time, this was beginning to get to me. It came to a head one evening when we were together and intimate, and I chose this honest space to ask her forthright, how do you feel about my disability? Sherbert went flat-faced. Her expression was one of discomfort and desire to hop the next helicopter ride instantly out of that corner. She replied with some very brief and unemotional one-word answers along the lines of, fine. I remember it because I was absorbing several realities all at once. 1, I was pissed at her and annoyed with her lack of reactive sensitivity to my situation. And 3, I respected that youth, her naked youthful freedom. 4, the most important reality of all in that moment, I instantly absorbed the fact that because of my condition, I was not going to be able to connect to just any woman. It was going to take a woman of strong sensitivity, of solid empathy, of true vision, to see past the disability and right through to where the truth of the matter resides, my heart. So we will pause there and talk about step 3. And step 3 of successful dating with special needs is you accept it, they will accept it. You deny it, they will deny it. I think that one kind of speaks for itself. You have to come to grips with the fact that you have a disability. You have to come to grips with the fact that while our culture would encourage you to cover it up, that there is no covering up your truth. You have to wear your truth. You have to be your truth. And if you're at peace with it, that gives off that peaceful vibe, and they will be at peace with it. But I know from experience that during the phases where I was not at peace with it, the person on the other side of the table was not at peace as well. So kind of similar to number 2, you set the tone. You take the responsibility, not just to communicate about it, but if you haven't accepted it, go to therapy, talk with other people who have it, do some journaling, whatever it takes for you to kind of come to grips with it. It's going to be the biggest step to encouraging successful connection, not just for dating, but for friendship as well. Be who you are and put it out there. That's my humble 2 cents. It brings to mind a quote from the movie Beautiful Mind, which is Russell Crowe instead of Cameron Crowe. It's a Crowe quote day, if you will. I love this quote. He says, maybe that's the way of it with our dreams and our nightmares. You have to feed them to keep them alive. And I think that's the bottom line when it gets down to it, is that you get to choose which you feed. And I know this because I've had times in my life where I have fed my nightmares, and then they get huge, and that's what stays alive. But when you really focus on your dreams and on the positive side, that gets stronger. Same as a muscle. Work it out, it gets stronger. So focus on the joy. Focus on the accepting and on the embracing of your reality, especially the parts of your reality that you have no control to change. Okay? Let's read on. Cool. Okay. I remember feeling sad about everything in that moment, as if to some degree the party was over. The age of ignorance and denial was coming to an end. In retrospect, it was a true blessing. That night with Sherbert was the beginning of truth, the start of a new path in regards to women, a path where there was no keeping CMT from them, no hiding it, and therefore no constant worry about its escape. I was now starting to sense a new plan, an easier ride, a simpler way of being more upfront with women about CMT and therefore knowing upfront when a potential partner was not up for dealing with my condition. It was essential to become aware of those women early on and not wait over a year to find out, because believe you me, it will come out eventually. I also realized that to be truthful was good and sensitive. I knew at least that I had found a sweet girl, a girl of substance, a girl worthy of attempts to bridge all the other gaps between two people. In many ways, this disability of mine, or ours, is a truth filter. It is an undeniable bridge to cross if you want to share our hearts. Those who are able to cross the bridge are allowed in, and those who are not are naturally filtered from our lives. It is a good tool when looked at in that regard. Since that night, and since turning 21, the theory has proven true. I have, with age, intensified in my physical sensitivity and my sleeve-worn truth about it. With the welcoming of leg braces, which I got, I think, when I was 23. That's not in the book. That's just a side note for your benefit. And the weakening of my muscles, I was forced to deal with my condition on a more constant, realistic, and open basis, both with myself and, in turn, with others. It was tricky, though, because when I was wearing long pants and in good physical form, it was still relatively easy to pass as normal, which was a constant temptation to conceal my disability from women to whom I was attracted. It is amazing how much I was growing bolder in certain areas, yet wearing long pants and shying away from my truth in others. The term weakness has always been synonymous with not getting the girl in my mind, not to mention throughout our culture. The strength and physique that are portraying, I felt that the appearance of my braces would shine with weakness, dependency, and a general sense of less. The same is true with my hands. Hey. As they have grown weaker, so has my self-consciousness with them in regards to women. There were several women I dated during those mid-20s years, and each of them not only crossed the bridge to me, but also allowed me to work on my own comfort and ease with this condition. They helped me through struggle and joy to slowly learn that I couldn't rely on looking strong. I simply had to be strong. Those few women that I dated during that time helped me a great deal. Much love goes out to Cupcake, Bananas Foster, and JELLO. The greatest amount of growth I have made in the sharing of my disability with women was achieved with two wonderful women. Mind you, this book was written about 7 years ago. So I would change that to 3 to factor in the current wonderful woman. But this book is pre-her, so we'll get to her later. I have made sharing of my disability with women with two wonderful women with whom I have had the honor to connect. We'll call them Flan and Flambe. Both of these women taught me amazing things about myself and my relationship to my disability. Their lessons were very different based upon the differences in who they were. I fell in love with Flan when I was 27. She and I had been friends for some time, and it grew from there. Flan was a really great breakthrough for me because she was my first taste of a woman who could care for my disability completely, as if it made no difference to her whatsoever. The bonus of Flan was that though she had not dated a man with a disability before, she took to it like it was adjusting to my height or the color of my eyes. She would ask me questions about my experience. She would seek out reading materials about my disability to become more informed. She sought out special socks for me to keep my feet well cushioned. She used me as an opportunity to grow and to become aware. Flan taught me that it was time to raise the bar when it came to whom I was going to make a connection. It was no longer just going to be about accepting my disability. It was going to be about embracing it. The bar deserved to be raised that high, and it hasn't been lowered since. I think we will pause the flambe. Okay. All right, so we will keep going. Okay. The next great push forward in my love path was with Flambe, named for the warmest relationship I have had since embracing my disability. In addition to being a wonderful person, Flambe, by my stroke of good luck, came from a history of dealing with difference. Flambe has a brother and a nephew with Down syndrome. She is also a speech-language pathologist, so she had dedicated her career to assisting those who are in need of help. Flambe has literally grown up sensitive to those differences and the struggles they create. It is her only reality. Once I realized that I loved this person, I soon after realized how easy it was going to be with her. Flambe was going to be my oasis, my well-deserved first experience with complete and total ease. I was afforded the experience of total comfort with my disability in the presence of a woman I was crazy about. She made it easy for me to share it with her. I fluidly ignored my usual defenses around this topic. It was a rush. She held my feet at the end of the day and rubbed them with love in her eyes. This is the absolute dream for a man with a disability, to have a woman so true of heart to walk alongside him. About a year into our relationship, Flambe and I went camping with a group of our friends. We were out hiking when we came upon a creek. It wasn't wide across, but it was steep. It was clear that we would have to leap over it to avoid wet feet. One by one, my normal friends leapt over the creek, and then it came down to me. I made my best effort, but landed my rear foot completely in the cold mountain water. The reaction of the others proved of great interest to me. All but Flambe snapped into motion to offer assistance and to check if I was all right. Flambe stood her ground and was laughing at the event. To her, it was funny. As soon as the others heard her laugh, they turned their reactions to her. Flambe, in the purity of her intent, explained that she trusted me to ask for help if I needed it, and besides, it was funny. In a beautiful way, in the best of ways, she was right. She knew me. If I needed help, I would have asked for it. If I was truly hurt, she would have known. That not being the case, she laughed, the way we do when watching people fall into water on America's Funniest Home Videos. The bottom line is that it was funny, and in Flambe's strange style, she was showing me the truest form of respect by not treating me like a helpless case that needed to be tended to because his foot was wet. She treated me like a man. She honored my normalcy and my ability as opposed to highlighting or dramatizing my inability. It is a gesture I dare say I'll not forget. Although I am no longer with Flambe, I will always hold her dear to my heart for many reasons, one of which was allowing me to feel completely at ease with my disability. Which brings us to step 4, talking about those two examples, and I can say up to current time that I'm dating someone right now who is the finest example I've found in regards to this concept yet. Step 4 is pick the right person to date. Sounds like kind of an obvious, but I'm going to repeat it for emphasis. Pick the right person to date. The one area where I allow my disability to come into the dating world and be an excuse is that we do have some special attention needs that just any partner will not be able to match. And in that regard, we, I think, should strive to find true companions. Not just companions that satiate certain parts of our desire, but companions that have the full package in regards to being able to care for our legs and hands the same way they do for our hearts. I have had experience of picking someone to date or a couple people to date over the years who I was not thinking those things or keeping those things in mind when I chose, and I felt the effects of those after. Conversely, when you make choices based on truth and based on sheer inner beauty, like I have now, then you get the benefits of being with someone who makes it easy to share your path with them. So pay attention to who you're going after and who you're choosing to share your time with, both friends and potential dating partners, because the right people make your time valuable and will bring you good gifts, I assure you. Random piece of advice, focus on the things that are in your control and give up the things that are out of your control. That is not one of the 5 steps, but I think that's just a really important lesson that I've learned over the years. So keep that in mind for what it's worth. Okay, and one more random thing, and then we'll move on to the last paragraph in step 5, which is practice explaining your disability to others. I kid you not, there was a time where I was in my apartment with my friend Mark back in Maryland in front of my mirror practicing explaining my disability. I always liken it to Bob Marley. I saw this interview with Bob Marley once, and he said that he always tried to write songs so that a 2-year-old could understand them. Not that he made his songs stupid, but he made his songs easy to hold on to and simple. And I have that same style when explaining my disability to others. I don't go into a heavy genetic discussion about myelin sheath. I go into a very simple discussion about how it shows itself in my body, and I think there's something about sharing it in that way and having kind of your shtick practiced and down that helps the other person to feel at ease and to really grab hold of what is CMT. So the last paragraph of the chapter, and then we'll get to step 5. The lesson that has come in the most recent years of my life is this. Flan and Flambe were trying to show me that a real woman is most interested in who you are, in the strength of your character, in the sincerity of your heart. A real woman is not concerned with the strength of your muscles. While physical prowess is a nice bonus, it is not the stuff that true love is made of. It is not the stuff that true love is made of. It is not the foundation on which reality stands. And in essence, I am strong at the end of the day. It takes a great deal of ability to be disabled in this world. It requires a physical and emotional toughness that many men will never know. It is a job and should be my goal to be honest with women, to be forthright about my situation, and most of all, to feel good about my disability, not about its effects. It's hard to feel good about tripping and sore feet. It's not hard to feel good about who I am and to never cower from my reality. I am a man with a disability. I need assistance sometimes. I need to vent my frustration sometimes. I need to share my life and heart with a woman who will support me, who will challenge me, one who will not think less of me. And if it turns out to be a bit harder to find that woman because of my condition, well then so be it. There is simply no other way for me. Like all things, I simply have to live the normal experiences in my abnormal way. My manly strength will come from walking around in hard plastic every day for the rest of my life. I will be strong by accepting the many ways that I need assistance. I will be a true man by living my life in truth, not in fear or shame, in bold, challenge-attacking, never quitting, weakness-accepting, pure-hearted truth. Onward. So that's chapter 4. Thank you for listening to me read. And that brings us to step 5 in the 5 steps of success when it comes to dating. Step 5 is everyone has special needs. We are not the people with special needs, and then over there the people without CMT do not have special needs. It's just that CMT is one of our special needs. But make no mistake, if there is one lesson I've learned from the many, many people who I have known and crossed paths with and called friends, it's that everyone has something in their life that they're dealing with, and most of the time they have multiple things in their life that they're dealing with. Some of them you can see. Some of them require leg braces, and it's obvious from the outside. Many of them, and some of the most profound ones, you can't see, but they're still going on inside of them. So to believe, as our elementary school system would have you believe, that those kids in that classroom there, that's called the special education classroom, have special needs, thereby everyone else out here does not, is complete foolishness. So my point is, don't think of yourself as different. Think of yourself as the same as everybody else. We are all individuals, and we are all exactly the same in regards to the possession of special needs that are special to ourselves. That's what special needs is, in my opinion. So when you start to see other people in the same light that you see yourself, it takes a little of the pressure off of trying to explain how different you are, because you're not that different. You're just explaining your version of special needs. And make no mistake, anyone worth their salt will have things that they could come back with in that same discussion and explain their special needs to you. So everyone's got stuff that they're dealing with. Which leads me to the delightful, lovely, and wonderful person that I'm dating right now. And I won't give you her name. We'll follow suit. We'll call her Diet Coke Float with frozen yogurt, because regular Coke Float with ice cream would not work because she's a diabetic. So Diet Coke Float with frozen yogurt is my current girlfriend. She has diabetes since she was 14, I believe, and therefore just gets it. Just gets it, and is a prime example of step 5, which is she's got special needs that, by all arguments, is more intense and severe than the ones that I deal with or that we deal with. She's got a daily, multiple times a day reminder of what she's got to go through. And there's been something about the act of sharing friendship with her, much less dating her, that's been wonderful, because she's the first person her intensity that we both have to pay attention to our special needs every single day, and we both need a little bit of support about our special needs every single day. She also has an older sister who grew up with special needs and is in a wheelchair and has required a lot of support at home, and so similar, she just has kind of goodness baked right in. It's natural for her. Plus, it's delightful. Even though she's an athlete, she's surprisingly klutzy, and so we bump into each other all the time, and it's pretty great. Maybe she's doing it out of sympathy, I don't know, but it feels really good when she falls into me as much as I fall into her. Bottom line is she's delightful. So I guess I end with that point because it's really important for you to remember that there's so many people that only hope to you finding the right person. I can honestly say that my situation makes me who I am. Therefore, every bit of my situation is the reason. Yeah, there's that. I guess I would kind of finish by reviewing the 5 steps. So number 1, don't use CMT as an excuse. Number 2, communicate everyone's tension, get the elephant out of the corner. Number 3, accept yourself. Just accept it. Deal with what's real. Bottom line. Don't run from what you can't. And number 5, everyone has special needs. Every single person has special needs. So we're all very similar in that regard. Before I get to your questions, I just want to leave you with one piece of advice. And I guess the advice is, I spoke at a CMT support group in the Denver area. We went around and asked everyone to say, what is it that you have gained by having CMT? What's the blessing of CMT? What's the hidden gift underneath CMT that you've received? I think it's a healthy exercise to really pay attention to not the typical negatives and the pain and the discomfort and the frustration, but also to challenge yourself to ask what's been about all those things that have happened in my life that are good as a result of me having CMT. So I just want to encourage you to focus on the positive as well. Let's go to your questions, Rick, if you have any questions that anyone has asked so far.
Well, we've got 3 questions that came in during your presentation, and I'll just go through those 3 questions, and then if anybody has any additional queries while Jonah's answering these 3, please use the question box on your webcam or your GoToWebinar dashboard to write your questions, and they'll come right to me. First question is, did you have a hard time when you first had to wear braces? Did this affect your dating?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. Ask that again.
Okay. The question was, did you have a hard time when you first wear braces? Did it affect your dating?
Rick, if you're able to, because when you talk it's pretty blurry, can you type the question to me? Is that possible? Can you type the question to me? Is that possible?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, gang. Hang on one sec. Rick's going to type it out for me. How's it going listening to my voice, people, for 40 minutes? You hanging in there? I sure hope so.
Let's see here.
Did you have a hard time when you first had to wear
I
braces?
sent the question to you via the chat.
Did you have a hard time when you first had to wear braces? Does this affect your dating?
Okay. It's a great question, and yes, I had a profoundly hard time. They were telling me since I was probably 5 or 7
They were telling me
that I should have been wearing braces all along, and I was telling them what they could do with that suggestion ever since. And when I was 22 years old, I went into a orthotist's office, and a good friend of mine had earned his head, and he asked me to put a pair of AFOs on, and I did, and he said, just walk across the office, and if you don't like it, take them off, and I'll never ask you again. He put them on, I got up, and I started walking across his office. I walked out his door and across his parking lot, and I turned around and I yelled at him to make me a pair.
When it came to
Wearing them and showing them to everybody, I wore jeans in the hot, sweaty Maryland summers for about 3 years, and went everywhere, but from everybody, I was not ready to accept them yet, which makes me understand that you have to accept yourself before anyone else is going to be able to accept you. And the longer I wore them, the more I started kind of challenging my own comfort with them. And there was one day at a summer camp I was working at in Maryland, or in Boulder actually, when I first moved out here, that my friend who was working with me came up and said, Jonah, it's freaking hot, and you're wearing jeans. What are you doing? And she was right. And the next day I came in with shorts, and I was uncomfortable. And I 3 to 5 times, and now I wear shorts every day in the summer. So be patient with the process, because I talk like I'm totally on top of it, but it's taken me a long time to get there. But it goes back to the same point. You can't run a retrospect that I was just kind of pausing till I got to the time where I was really going to be successful with women, because success comes from honesty. And so when I was honest, I had a much easier time, even with my braces. So hopefully I answered that question for you. Rick, do you have the second one? Okay. I have a mild case of CMT which is not noticeable to people 6 months. I have raised the subject of my CMT to this point, but feel like I should I haven't raised the subject of my CMT to this point, but feel like I should do it soon. He just thinks I'm a little clumsy and get tired easily. Oh, that's an awesome question. First of all, I would say that I'll answer your question, but secondly, contact me through Facebook or any way that you can, and let's chat about it longer afterwards. But it is no different than a Band-Aid, my friends. You can peel it slow or you can peel it fast. The bottom line is I would do your research so that, again, you know, kind of, because I think a plan helps you to present it more organized, helps you to stay a little calmer when you're doing it. The next piece of advice I would give you is remember that he's with you, okay? So there's nothing that you're going to say that's going to make him run from you. And guess what? If for some reason anything you say makes him run from you, then he's not the person that you want to be with in the first place. So my assumption is that if he's someone you're calling your boyfriend already, that he's a quality guy and you just need to break it to him. Make it organized. That would be my next not in how you present it, then a moment to come up organically where you're like, oh, by the way, I have CMT, because that kind of throws it at him. I think if you let him know there's something you want to talk to him about and share with him, and then do it in kind of its own time, I think that's giving respect to the topic, and it's also helping him to understand that this is something that's really important to you. Bottom line, my friend, is do it. Do it, do it, do it. Don't wait. Don't wait weeks. Barely wait days. Just sit down with him. Talk it through, and if you need any advice on how to explain CMT to somebody who doesn't know CMT, by all means get in touch with me, Jonah Berger on Facebook. You can find me pretty easy. I'm on all the CMT sites as well, because I've had good experience not just with someone I'm dating, but with people that I've come across and having to explain it. So I'm more than happy to work with you around that. But good luck to you, and again, to be wicked repetitive, just tell him. Just tell him, bottom line, and be okay if he's a little awkward at first, and be okay if he needs time to explain or ask questions, and let him know if he needs any more information, that there's lots of ways out there that you can get more information for him. But if you boil it all down to one thing, it's tell him. Don't wait. Don't waste time. Tell him. All right. Third question. Are there any CMT dating sites? It's funny you say that because I work with kids and adults with all kinds of special needs, and we've always wondered if there were dating sites specifically for, lack of a better way to put it, the special needs community. And there are for the special needs community. There are not for CMT specific. But while I would say, obviously, there's nothing wrong with dating someone with CMT. It would be someone who would understand you, of course. I would also say that no matter what your special need, but I'm speaking to all of you with CMT, you don't need a CMT dating site. While dating sites have not worked for me, the couple times where I've tried them out, it's always been a debate whether to put CMT on there or not. Does it define you or does it not? Is it something you want people knowing before they meet you, or do you want them to hear it from you? And I guess for what it's worth, my feeling has always been not to put it on my profile because that's not the way I want people to know about it. I want to look at someone who's worth their salt and explain it to them face to face. And so my opinion is I don't know of any CMT-specific dating sites, but I would say go on any dating site, go on any date, and as soon as you get a feeling that someone is worthwhile, look them right in the eye and just tell them. There is always an awkward moment in that beginning first few sentences where you're like, oh my God, here we go, I'm telling him about my disability, he's going to want to run, she's going to want to run, but it's quick and it passes, and the look on their face of relief after you kind of explain your situation is not just filling in some answers for them as to why your feet or hands look the way you do or you walk the way you do, but it also gives a direct message to who you're sharing time with that you're not afraid of who you are and that you're not embarrassed of who you are and that you're going to talk about it openly. So no matter what, tell them. Just tell them. Rick, any other questions? Okay. Here's the next question. I'd like to know how Jonah describes his CMT to people. I bought and quote his book to my husband and friends, so I'd like to hear his description. Okay, I can do that with you. So first you tell them. There's no creative way to go around it. You say, so I have a disability. It's a form of muscular dystrophy, although I know officially it's not, scientifically it's not a form of muscular dystrophy. I still like to say that because I think it ties it to a name that people are more familiar with. And it's been associated enough with muscular dystrophy over the years that I feel secure in telling them that little lie, at least to put their mind at ease, to give them some kind of framework to work with. So then I go right into it. I say that your muscles work because your brain sends messages to your muscles through your nerves. And I always raise my hand. I say, so my brain just told my arm to go up, my arm goes up. And the way that happens is my brain is telling through the nerves all the way down my arm and up through my hand, go up. That's how my arm moves. In CMT, I always say from the elbows to the fingertips and the knees to the toes, those messages get slowed down. And the reason they get slowed down is that the nerves are covered with a coating called myelin sheath. And the myelin sheath is the same thing as like an orange coating on an electric extension cord. If you didn't have that orange coating on the extension cord, electricity when you plugged it in would be flying all over the place. What that orange coating does is allows the energy to run down the cord and into whatever product you're powering. So the same thing works in the human body, but my myelin sheath from my elbows to my fingers and my knees to my toes is wearing away. So that orange coating around my extension cords is wearing away, and therefore the electrical messages from my brain to my muscles, when they get out there, are not getting to the muscles as quickly as they should, microscopically slower, but not as quickly as they should and not as clearly as they should. So the messages are coming through a little distorted. Over time, I always tell them that the muscles, because they're not getting the messages from the brain quick enough and clear enough, start to deteriorate. And that's why the muscles in my feet and my hands deteriorate. So then I go into the feet and the hands, and I always tell them, put your feet flat on the ground. And I always move my chair back and actually look at their feet and make it an actual exercise. And I say, keep your heel on the ground, but pivot your toes up. and they always do it perfectly, which is funny. And then I say, okay, so the muscles you just used are the very muscles in my lower legs that are most affected. So I said, I always show them my brace, and I'll say, you know, this keeps my foot at a 90-degree angle, but if I take my brace off, I wouldn't be able to do that at all. In fact, there's just a little motion in my toes, basically. So that just gives them a comparison that what they just did with the greatest of ease is the thing you have the hard time doing, and it makes them understand the braces. I always grab their hand next. Do this with anyone. I'll do this with someone on the street. You grab their hand, and on their normal hand, you hold their hand and you point to this muscle group right here between your thumb and your finger. And usually for most of, for lack of a better way to put it, well, non-CMT people, there's a bulge of muscles. There's a muscle group right there that's a bulge. I always tell them that is the muscle group that uses your thumb in conjunction with your fingers to do anything small, like fine motor, meaning buttoning a button, picking up a penny, anything like that. Then I show them my hands, and I say, you see here how the muscles are worn away in my hands? Well, that's what makes any small deed with my hands difficult. When I'm having to use my thumb with my fingers, it's harder for me because those muscle groups in my hands are worn away because over time they've gotten slower messages from my brain. I always throw in something at the end because it's absolutely sincere and it gives them a quick dose of kind of perspective that, you know what, the bottom line is it could be way worse. I have my challenges, I have my discomforts, but I've seen enough of the world to know that it could be way worse. My mom always kind of taught me that. And that kind of reminds them that, you know, look, I've got something that I could be upset about all the time, but I'm not. I'm cool. Everything's fine. So that's pretty much it. I've given that very talk to a female across the table, to a couple friends in a room, or to a group of staff who I'm doing orientation with that are 60 people large. It just is who I am, and it gives them enough dose of kind of science mixed with just normal people talk that I think it puts them at ease. Hope that helped. Hope that helped. Any other questions, Rick? Next question. Do you find people are more understanding of disabilities and less bothered or put off by them as they, not me, get older? That's an interesting question. Yes and no. Yes and no. I would say definitely to a certain degree age brings wisdom, for sure, but my girlfriend, Diet Coke float with a frozen yogurt, is 17 years younger than I am. We have a huge age difference with us, but yet we function on the exact same page, and she has an acceptance and a respect for my disability and for people in general that, you know, I've met plenty of people, 50 and 60-year-olds, that don't even come close to it. So I would say, I don't know, I think there's a general logic that people get a little bit more sensitive the older they get, but I would say far more than age is information. The more information people have, the more sensitive they become. The more ignorant they are, the less sensitive they become. And so that's the reason I go into elementary schools and do these drumming programs with little kids. And you can see it when you're talking to kindergartners or first or second graders. You fill them with education and information, and they understand, and they get it, and they're respectful. Kids come right up to me and will ask me about my braces. They have no shame, and I love that about them. And as soon as I tell them, they're fine. They have their information. They move on. They barely care about my braces after that. It's our human condition to be curious about that which we don't understand. We have made it rude and falsely assigned negativity to that curiosity, but I'm trying at least the best I can in one man's path to change that one person at a time or one group at a time, to let people know if you're curious, ask. Ask. Let's break down those walls, because as soon as someone asks me, I give them the answer. They're filled with information. Their ignorance decreases, and their sensitivity rises. And I don't think that has anything to do with age. I think that mostly has to do with openness and information. Hope that answered your question. Okay, Rick, any others? One more final question. You have cool AFOs. Are they Helios? No, they are not Helios. Thank you. The light in here is really weird, or I would show you them in much better proximity, but they're wicked cool. There's a guy who makes them out here. I've been waiting to hear this my whole life, but he looked at me before he started making them. He said, I have a machine that any fabric can be put onto them. So go to Joann Fabrics and pick. I'm not kidding you. I hugged them. I smiled and I hugged them because I remember the days of having to wear plain white ones and being miserable about them and having my friends color on them or paint them. But I went to Joann Fabrics and I found this cool like black and dark blue print that I really dug. I've had a very long and tough path with finding the right braces. I'm wearing fat braces right now, and I would say they're not perfect, but I would say they're closer than any other brace that I have dealt with yet. The one lesson I've learned that I would say to everyone is by all means, take the molding of your legs to make the braces as seriously as any step in the whole process, because the last pair, even fat braces that I had, were miserable. It's because they weren't molded well. So whoever casts you has to cast you in just the right way. Make sure they're a pro at it, because the cast will lead to a successful brace. But mostly in the last 10 years, I've been in fat braces, and I would highly recommend them. I think they're great. They're light, but they're super strong. And if you find the right person, you can put whatever fabric on them you want. Rick, I'm gonna have a quick closing thought, and then I'll turn it back over to you, if that's okay.
Thanks very much, Jonah. That was
my closing
terrific.
thought to you is that I was
we came in at right around an hour.
Rick, did you say something?
Yeah. Can you hear me? I unmuted myself and should be coming through. I hope everybody can hear me. I just wanted to say thank you. That was terrific, and we'll get the presentation up on the CMTA USA website within the next week, where people can hear it and hopefully be able to view the video as well. Go ahead, Jonah.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
I just had a quick final point to make, if that's okay.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. The last point I wanted to make is that I was in the bookstore 2 days ago, and I was reading Psychology Today, which is not typical for me, but they had a cool cover, and it drew my attention. And the article was about the concept that they are learning now when studying the brain in close proximity that if you envision success, it leads you closer to following it up with your life. If you don't envision success, you are farther away from it. And I don't know why, but I can't get that thought out of my head in the last few days, and I just want to kind of tie it into this topic. Sometimes I pinch myself and I'm like, how am I dating this girl? She's unbelievable. She's sweet. She's smart. She's funny. She's like just such a wonderful soul. And, you know, I would say part of the reason I'm dating her is because when I met her and as we were friends, I envisioned being with her, even though we had an age difference and even though she lives far away from me. I allowed my brain to see the ideal. And what this article was about is that evidently there is direct tie to allowing your brain to see your vision of your ideal and living your life closer to catching up to it. So I don't know. I attribute some of my happiness right now to the fact that I'm constantly dreaming about my happiness, and I want you to do the same. I know that everyone is at different places with acceptance of their disability and with their dating path, but don't ever, ever stop imagining the ideal. Just picture yourself succeeding. Picture yourself across from someone you're crazy about and being bluntly honest with them and helping them understand CMT and moving on successful with them. Picture it. Because evidently scientists are telling us it's the first step and a very helpful step to living that truth. Good luck to all of you. May we all be in the arms of sweet, kind partners sooner than later. Thanks for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you all for attending, and we welcome you to join the next CMTA webinar, which should be in about a month. We'll send out messages describing the webinar and welcoming you to register. Thanks again, Jonah. Bye-bye.
You bet. Bye, everyone.